Thank you so much. Awesome. All right, we're good to go.
See the chats too. Okay, cool. So my name is Becky Seward, and I am the owner and operator of Tree Farmstead. And this is a workshop I've had in mind for a really long time. I have been farming for a while, as we'll get to in a moment. But I just always felt like I was always a little bit more interested in the why people farmed, or maybe that was just something that was missing from my education as a farmer, and not just the how. And so that, has definitely shaped probably the last 5 or 6 years of our farming life. And so I thought, I've been thinking, okay, let's get into why people want to farm, and kind of how, like, once you have the why in mind, how to make decisions from there. So slide, please. Oh, Gail, you're so sweet. So yeah, I've been farming since 2002, and we don't need to go into how long ago that was. But you can see me on the bottom left there. That was me in 2008 when I used to work for PBF West in Loudon. And I have farmed in Washington State for a farm-to-table restaurant. I farmed an Even Star farm. That was the first farm I started on in 2002. And then in, 2012, I was the Akakik Foundation's farm manager for 2 years doing farmer training. So that is to say, all of that was great and hard and had, sounds really good, but then running my own business starting in 2014 was unlike any of those challenges. Although it was incredibly helpful to have all of that experience. And just to say that the other qualifications you see on that page, just to say that, I've done some background with risk management and GAP and Annie's project, actually with Deb Dranby, who's also with Future Harvest, and had some permaculture experience as well. So super diverse kind of experience. I also worked for Mom's Organic Market for a year and have dabbled in herbalism, and so I really enjoy plants. I did native plant work for a couple of years. So I haven't been farming the whole time since 2002, but I've always been really interested in plants, herbalism, natural health. So in 2014, the year I started my business, I'd already started my business, but I met my partner, Mark, and he and I hit it off, and he just was like, ooh, I like this too. He was already farming, but kind of newer to it. And so he started kind of helping out a lot in 2014. And then we had our kiddo Lala in 2018. She might make an impromptu appearance if Sesame Street doesn't work well upstairs. So yeah, overall, kind of informally, super interested in food, nature, being outside, all of those good things, as well as natural health, herbs, and flowers. And flowers were kind of something that I, started doing at Even Star Farm forever ago, but as part of their overall operation, but kind of organically evolved into something that I started to do with events and markets. So at the other picture here is me last year at the La Plata Farmers Market in 2019. All right, ready for us? Next slide. So let's see. Our farm is Red Tree Farmstead. So it's in my name, but Mark is just as much as, and perhaps a little bit more of a land worker and a farmer. And, it just happens to be my name on the deed. And so, actually, I guess it's the USDA's name on the deed. So we used the FSA program of the USDA. Before that, we rented land in Bryanswood, Maryland for 3 years. under a different name. So that was Prickly Pear Produce. So sometimes in some of the pictures you'll see our marketing banner will say Prickly Pear Produce. So that was what we were for 3 years. And then when we moved here, we decided to give it a new name. What we do here, we do mostly cut flowers. So we're probably 70-30 cut flowers to vegetables percentage-wise in terms of grow space. And then we rotate chickens using chicken tractors for eggs through much of our property. We probably have about 2 acres in cultivation, and that is a rotation. So that's cover crops, silage tarps, and we'll get into some of that later. And then 1 acre or more, because we kind of rotate the chickens where we're able. So sometimes it's our lawn, which is always fun later when you step in chicken poop. And sometimes it's the fields, and sometimes it's orchards, which we're working on. So I want to start by saying I have been really blessed to learn from a whole lot of teachers over the years, but I have to say some of them are just incredibly hardworking in ways that I am not sure I have in me like as a longevity thing. And so that is one of the motivations I've used to try to strike a balance here on our farm. You will get into a little bit more why, but we had some challenges in 2018 in particular with the really, really wet year. It's also the year that I was pregnant and had my kid in September. So I was just miserable all summer. And it was a really hard financial year for us and created a lot of uncertainty about our future. And that was the year that I said, that was also a CSA year for us. And that was the year that I said, we have to reinvestigate how we do this. Because between 2014 and 2018, that had been my entire income. I did not have off-farm income. Occasionally I'd work for moonlight for other farmers and get stipends for this and that. But for the most, full-time farming was how I made my income. And so, and Mark had a small part-time job, but really our whole income was coming from the farm. So it was just incredibly challenging to do that with all of the pregnancy challenges. I had sciatic pain. I had carpal tunnel in my hands. I was, blessed with an overall healthy pregnancy, but it was pretty uncomfortable. And then we also had 9 inches of rain in a day, 13 inches in a week, and our soils just couldn't handle it. And so we lost money in 2018. And so nothing like bringing a kid into the world and having an incredibly challenging weather year and losing money on your farm to really reconsider. So, but I felt a lot of internal kind of guilt about that. And so I had to really think about why, getting a part-time job made me feel so guilty or like I was failing as a farmer. So anyway, so this is another explanation of where this workshop comes from. So after we kind of reassessed that year, I was like, screw it, I'm gonna get a part-time job. And we'd been wanting to make a flower transition for a while. So we made the flowers transition. Thank you, dear. And we also had a kid. And so all of these things kind of combined into this, the current, oops, can you go back one?
Yeah, sorry. It should be back going forward. Or do you want to go back here? Sorry.
I think it went back to, or
there we go. How's that? Technical difficulties for.
Oh no, that's good. You're right. I'm sorry.
Are we good now? It says the farm at the top.
I just can't see the whole thing because.
Yeah, I think we have a delay in between.
Okay, so I think that's
here.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Sorry, folks. Thanks for bearing with us here. We are we're experiencing all the Zoom challenges today, but we're getting through it. All right. Thank you. Sorry about that.
You're doing great. So I think actually the next one, or is it slow? There it is. So that's kind of the background. And we'd also kind of over the years, we've used Rebecca Rebecca Thistlethwaite's book, Farms with a Future, to kind of help us decide what to grow and how to grow it. But I'm not sure that we were always super honest with ourselves about what we could handle throughout the season. And so after 2018's challenges, we went ahead and just looked at honestly who we were and what was important to us. But, I got the ideas from the ideas of holistic management, as well as what I call holistic management light, using Rebecca Thistlethwaite's book, which gets into SWOT analysis. And basically for us, it was looking at kind of how did we want to live our everyday life? Did we want to, really be out in the fields? Some folks are amazing with tractors, and that's where they feel their bliss as a farmer, is just like jamming out cultivation. Or maybe it's just having the goal of knowing that they're growing as much food as humanly possible. Those are all awesome. For us, it was, eating the food that we were growing. It was gonna be hanging out with our kid. So it really just was kind of looking at what we really wanted from our lives. And then also being honest. So that's SWOT analysis, which is your strengths, weaknesses. Oh my gosh, I can't even remember what it all is. But anyway, definitely the strengths and weaknesses part. So how we were with money. Like, as much as I needed the CSA money every single year to purchase things for our farm and was incredibly grateful for that money, it gets really stretched thin when it's November and you haven't had much farm income. Thank you, dear. Opportunities and threats. Sorry, I should have grabbed my book, which is right next to me. But CSA is a form of debt, and it's a great tool for many farmers. But for me, for us, it ended up being kind of hard eventually in the season when, even though farmers market money would be coming in, it just was difficult for us to spread it thin. And also, there's a lot of pressure in the CSA. And I think for us, it ended up just being too much at times, even though we did customizable at various times and stuff. So other factors, we really needed to make sure that even though we had hugely diverse interests on our farm, that everything made money. Our CSA was just veg. We would do occasional flower CSAs, but I'd say 70-30. Sorry, just to answer that question. So our current farm model, everything on our farm must make money, but we get to use it first. That being said, we still eat like all the blemished tomatoes before we eat the really pretty ones. But if I'm gonna grow pumpkins, I'm gonna eat the pumpkins. Whereas I feel like there were times in the CSA model where I didn't eat anything I ate the chicken food of what I was growing because I had to save everything for our CSA members. So having the part-time job, having the flowers as the main crop, kind of put the homesteading part of our farm into focus, which was nourishing ourselves and our kid, currently just one. And also currently our model is trying to be much more flexible with our marketing, and in particular, not driving so far away. We love our remote market customers, but they were just really far away for us. And the markets were kind of stretched thin for us. And so we've been doing just one local market, and it's much better for us. So in the next slides, we'll get into the 4 categories below and kind of expand on the philosophy. So just for us, we made the decision to be the main caretakers of our kid. She's under 2. We don't have a lot of childcare in the area. We do get occasional childcare and from our parents, and one person who comes to our house occasionally. So I work part-time right now. For a PR firm, it's really early in the morning. It's 5 to 10 a.m. a few days a week. It really helped us make the transition to be cut flower growers, which is what I always wanted. And frankly, Caroline and I went to the same college. I have a liberal arts degree I wasn't using. I barely used because I started farming while I was in college. and I kind of missed it, kind of using that part of my brain. So again, just looking at overall joy, overall, fulfillment in the world, it was something that I kind of had a desire to use, as well as the homesteading angle. Other factors, I feel like between the part-time job and the being a small scale farm, we're able to consider taking care of our parents in the future if anything should happen to them. There's overall risk management. We're getting not very old, but our bodies hurt and they're not going to be in great shape forever. So just kind of spreading our overall life risk management around. At the current time, I'm not drawing a retirement plan from my job, but I could be, and I also could be getting healthcare if I needed to be. So those are, yeah, so we'll see what happens, as the life transitions with COVID continue with the childcare angle. But as it is now, we alternate for the most part, except for maybe 10 to 15 hours of childcare a week. We alternate being with our kiddo, and that includes sometimes she comes with us to do things. All right, next slide, please. Thank you for your questions. We'll probably get to them later. It's hard for me to read them while I'm presenting.
Yep, we're aggregating them, so we will have them all at the end.
Thank you so much. Yes, I really want to answer them, but it's hard for me to keep an eye on them. So the permaculture angle and the homesteading angle, for me, the permaculture angle is always going to take time because it's, for me, that meant a lot of perennial agriculture. So all of those things take some time. And so, having our risk spread a little thinner is been great for adding permaculture concepts into our farm. We also decided, even way before COVID actually, that we were going to grow storage crops and other things that we could have for our family, but always with the mindset that we would grow too much and always have it for our customers to sell. When COVID hit, we did increase our vegetable production by 5 to 10 times depending on what it was, but we also sold plant starts, which were incredibly popular this spring. So I guess I'm just saying all of these things because the focus would be us kind of first, and then having a customer base that's been built for years and years, having a market, we are able to kind of sell our goods as well. So we grow enough. Like I said, we have a 600 person mailing list. Many of these people have been with me, some for before I was in my own business. And then the perennial plantings that we do: third year persimmons, elderberries, and asparagus. Then we also have perennial medicinal herbs and perennial flowers. So a lot of those things are incredibly useful, but also take time. So waiting out that time, it's great to have the risks spread out. We enjoyed growing small scale, but I was the middle manager for a long time. I'm pretty aware of farm efficiency, but Mark and I both enjoy being on a smaller scale. All right, next slide, please. So one thing I think people don't really consider when, I think when they're deciding what kind of farm to be, and maybe that's what I should have called this workshop: what kind of farm do you want to be? Is what kind of personality are you? For us, CSA was a really big grind. It caused a lot of stress, not to TMI, but like between us, and it was just hard. And this is somebody who's done CSA for a really long time, but something about that deadline to, get the boxes out was just extra hard on us. Maybe because we're so small and we never had many employees. We also just are the type of people that do better with our hands on things. Like, as much as I enjoyed big machinery, we wanted to use smaller hand tools and carts and walk behind tractor, which we'll get into later. I've seen a lot of farmers that just are kind of workaholics, and I don't necessarily think that there's, I mean, I guess the term workaholic's kind of bad, but I don't know that there's necessarily anything wrong with loving work. There's not, you know, if you love work, that's cool. But maybe for us, we don't love work all the time. And so spreading that out so that we were able to enjoy our land, our food, our kiddo, and our time. And our customers, I think we resented our customers sometimes at the end of the season, especially with CSA. Because, you know, it's like, okay, you paid me forever ago and I'm still, yes, thanks, Deb. And we're still, you know, we're still giving you this food and I love you, but you know, so now there's a greater sense of appreciation, and our customers are able to, we'll talk about our COVID response now, but we deliver customizable food to people. And so they seem to really, you know, keeps people pretty happy. Maybe we're high strung. We're making the peace with who we are, which I'm just not sure is a topic of conversation in a lot of farmer model discussions. Farming can be addictive, like I said, workaholics. So these are just factors I like to bring in and hope that others do into their decisions about farming. Pleasure, peace, and time. Your time is, Mark and I always talk about this, your time, everybody's time is their most precious thing, you know, it really is. We don't get more of it. We get what we get. And anyway, so for us to kind of help that out, we do 4-season growing. And actually we kind of boosted up summer too much this year. And I think we're still really enjoying our summer, but the goal, especially with flowers, is to be as focused in spring and fall. And then with vegetables, honestly, to be focused in like those 2 seasons in winter, and probably to cut summer in half of what we did this year. Although I'm really glad that freezer is stocked with tomatoes. So yeah, the backup plans and flowers. So a big thing about the flowers was they just always brought me more joy. Even if I was just tired of cutting flowers, you know, which I get really tired of cutting flowers. They still, you know, when I go to arrange them for a market, they always bring me more joy than just heavy backbreaking tomatoes, or I don't know. I love growing vegetables in certain ways, and in others, I could just always find more joy in the flowers. So not to belabor the point, but having the part-time job gave us risk management. Caroline, could you please, dear? Okay, so like I said before, 2018 was rough. And I started that job in December of that year. I would say, yeah, we're about 60K before expenses. It's been much more when CSA was high, but the expenses would be a lot higher. I honestly always average about 25 to 35K depending on the year and if we're doing something infrastructure wise on the farm. Our goal, and hopefully we would kind of maybe not need a part-time job later, is more like 100,000 and take home about 50,000, and maybe we would, you know, keep a part-time for that. But you know, things are fairly affordable for us with our mortgage to the FSA and everything. So what we use for equipment, and we'll do a bigger delving into this during our farm tour section of things, but we use mostly hand tools, although we try very hard not to do a lot of weeding, and we use weed mats a lot for that, for our weed management. Chicken tractors, we use carts a lot. Oh, my kiddo is crying. We use a Grillo system. A walk behind tractor system. So I'll get into that in a second too, and a lawnmower. But we try to use the chickens also to eat some grass. I would love to have some sheep, but Mark's watching this somewhere and saying, no, nothing more care. Because of soil constraints, I can't read the rest of what I said on this slide. Oh, okay. Why do we use the equipment we use? Yeah, so we use the equipment we use because we have some heavy Southern Maryland soils, and it's a lot easier for us to, during wet seasons, to use a walk behind tractor versus a ride on top tractor. And then other equipment that we tend to use are greenhouses, which we have 3 12 by 80 greenhouses, and season extension structures like row cover, as you can see below, and you can see Mark in the middle making raised beds with the rotary plow, part of the Grillo. And then our kiddo, that's Lila, and that's how we do chicken chores, sometimes with her on coffee bags. And yeah. So next slide, please. All right. So just kind of the overview of us and markets and labor. We've struggled with labor. We live 20 minutes away, 17 miles from the nearest town. And honestly, we you know, our farm is such a small scale, and I know people do crazy or really, really intense operations with less land. But for us, growing what we're growing, it's pretty much a 2-person farm. We have some occasionally we'll hire a 20-year-old guy to, you know, haul some stuff around. But for the most part, we go ahead and get our help from, that's not true. We have a couple of folks in the community who come and help me, like weed and do big flower projects and stuff like that. But it's pretty limited, maybe 5 hours a week at the moment. We tend to use our help in the form of childcare. So if we're going to pay somebody, it's a babysitter. But again, that's been pretty limited with COVID. So I think I already mentioned it, but CSA was pretty demanding for us. So sorry. My phone is connected to, yep, all the things. Yep, sorry about that. And
You're
now
showing us the realities of your life.
it's like the phone's connected to the computer. I'm so sorry. And I think I'm having plants delivered outside at the moment as well. We're going to pretend like that's not happening. Oh, and it's letting me present, Caroline.
Oh, cool.
Should I not?
Go ahead and this is a good time to try it. So let me see if I can stop sharing my screen.
Can you see me?
And can you try sharing yours?
Yes. All right. Oh.
No worries. Easy enough for me to go back into screen share if we need to.
Oh my gosh. The word hate is coming to mind, but that's not cool either.
We're just doing a good example of what it means to be a farmer and take time to do a presentation for future harvest. You got all kinds of things going on in the background.
I can't even find you anymore. What is going on, computer?
Oh, it's okay. Let me see if I can.
Oh no, there you are. Let's see. I might. Okay.
Let's see.
How fun is this?
No worries. My screen share just decided to act up too. So I'm wondering if we're having a Zoom issue rather than a like just if there we go. I can see your screen sharing now. There we go.
Okay. Whoa, that's so fancy. Okay. So markets and labor. So CSA was super demanding. Sorry, everybody. We love growing a variety of vegetables, but maybe the variety of vegetables that we were growing was just like a little too much for us. And just the space was limited. So I found that there were times a year where we had like our whole farm filled up and it was really hard to fit in, you know, crop rotation, you know, cover crops, all of those things. So, and then another tip about us in marketing is we were spending a lot of time driving to and from DC markets and also making about half the money at those markets that we do currently with our local market. And I don't know why I hadn't given it a chance earlier in our farming career. I think it also coincided with a really great market manager starting there. But in 2019, we started the La Plata Farmers Market down here in Southern Maryland, and it's been incredibly good for us. I think there was this anonymity that would sometimes be a good thing because, you know, people would be attracted to our beautiful stand and that would just do it. But I think it was just a lot easier for people to connect with us. And then I'll get into what our current COVID delivery system, COVID marketing system looks like. And it's pretty great for us. And not, we do a lot of events, but not so many right now. All right, so some additional considerations for why we are the way we are. Our soil is Beltsville soil. It's kind of like a silt loam clay sand. I don't even know. We have like a little bit of all types of soil, but there's some heavy clay in a lot of parts of it. But the biggest characteristic of it is it has about 3 feet of usable soil, and then there's a hard pan layer below that. So when water flows from our farm, it flows through our farm. It goes like, you know, underneath the ground, or not underneath the ground, sorry, it doesn't percolate, so it just sits on top of the hard pan. So that's why we use the walk behind and stuff, and hand tools. We also have kind of a skinny piece of property, so it's like a 300 feet wide, so we needed to design the farm to work this shape, which would have made it a little challenging to be on a tractor system. And then we also, you know, really wanted to make sure that we had chickens rotating through our farm. Here we have Lila harvesting mushrooms, which is one of her favorite farm things to help with. So considering all the things I talked about, time, joy, you know, peace, all of these things, we prefer to stretch out the season as much as possible. We even do dried flowers. I do wreaths. We do body care products around the holidays. And then of course, as many things that come back every year, or, you know, for a few years, like mushrooms, small fruits. So working on persimmons, elderberries, more than that too. What else? Asparagus. And we also have bees, which at this point, we have a hard time keeping them alive, unfortunately, over the winter, but we've been using their wax for our body butter that we do. All right. Here's a little farm tour. So on the left, you can see that was our farm before we bought it. So the little garden was, the woman that owned the property had this little garden, and chicken coop, tractor barn, shed. Here's our house. So these were all mowed fields. She had limed periodically, but they were organic. You know, there was a small asparagus patch in the garden. This is a hazelnut orchard, and just like tons of cool native trees and stuff. So on the right, you can see that we added greenhouses. There's some shade cloth. We actually have 3. This is a slightly older picture. This is our makeshift packing shed at the moment. It's a white plastic on it. Here's a silage tarp. Here's some row cover, another silage tarp. Or maybe those are weed mats. It's hard to tell. Here's a nursery greenhouse. So we were blessed with, you know, some infrastructure and some cool perennials on our farm when we came in. And then from there, you know, we had a lexicon of things that I was comfortable with, having done this for a number of years and worked and seen a lot of operations. But for where we are now, our diversity is based on kind of number one, what we like to grow, eat, and sell. So those aren't always the same thing. Sometimes we like to sell stuff that we don't like to eat. There's not many of those things. We like to eat most things, but we don't really love rainbow chard. I'm just gonna say it. And so sometimes I grow that though because it's beautiful. But for the most part, we love everything else to eat. But we find it's easier to sell things that you love to grow as well. And so, but yeah, also things that you like to grow. Some things I like to grow and I don't like to eat as much, or, you know, so, and some things I like to eat a whole lot and they might not be worth growing. So we try to be kind of conscious of the balance between these three things. Our second would be, what can we grow for crop rotation land fertility? So pro tip, flowers are incredibly useful as a crop in terms of crop rotation because they are so diverse, right? Like, you know, to have an effective flower field full of bouquet making, you know, nirvana, you could probably have 4 species in 100-foot bed of plants. And you can't say that for vegetable crops, right? Vegetable crops are, you know, spring and fall, I'm going to plant brassicas and I'm going to go crazy on brassicas, and I'm going to have, you know, 10 100-foot long beds of brassicas, and they're going to be salad mix, you know, cabbage, blah, 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 blah. And I'm going to have cabbage loopers, you know, hopefully my soil is great and my pest management is great, but if not, and probably still, I'm going to have cabbage loopers, harlequin bugs, terrible bugs, because it's all the same. You know, I'm going to do all my great organic farming techniques, but I'm probably still going to have some bug pressure. As anybody who tries to grow a cucurbit crop in Maryland or Virginia or West Virginia will tell you, like, squash bugs are terrible. And so just cut flowers are an amazing thing to add to the rotation because they add a diversity. They also bring in pollinators, even though that's not supposed to be a thing. It's definitely a thing on our farm. So anyway, crop rotation is a big part, and land fertility are a big part of why we do what we do. The third thing is what our customers want and will sell. So it's obviously consideration, but what we like to sell and what we like to eat and grow are different things. Then one of our major risk management techniques is perennial agriculture for our backs and, you know, whatever. Like if I have peonies to cut in 5 years, like that's a huge benefit for me, regardless of whether I want to grow annual crops in 5 years. You know, say I have another kid and it's really demanding, or say one of us hurts our bodies or something, we'll have something to cut in the future, or pick from a tree, or cut for asparagus. So anyway, perennial agriculture is a big part of our farm. Cut flower needs, same thing with the perennials. But in terms of certain times of year are really, really big pushes for us for cut flowers. One is November. So another pro tip, October, November, really big times of year for cut flower growers, are for me as a cut flower grower. And for spring production. And honestly, we will probably start growing a little less and put some of our plantings, things are coming on in a couple weeks, so that we have big fall production. Growing for events, just to add that in there, is definitely a little bit different because you want to grow slightly weirder things. So like I have sea oats and tansy and viburnum and a lot more greenery that I plant for event flowers versus just having pretty bouquets for farmers market, which are awesome too, but they don't need as much complexity. So seasonal, what did I mean by seasonal considerations? I guess I kind of explained it with cut flowers, as well as, yeah, I also want to have a good winter production. And to do that, I'm going to need to plant between now and October for vegetables. All right, here's my cheese. So here's our products. I love, for some reason, to take pictures of cartloads of flowers. If anybody follows me on Instagram, they'll see that I'm just ridiculous. Below here, below my mug is this ranunculus, which is another big crop for us in the springtime, and we could just sell all that we can grow. Another item on the right here are heirloom mums, another great item that we could probably sell all we can grow of in November and October. My daughter might make an appearance shortly. She's about to burst into the room. So those are some of our flowers, but the majority of our flowers, especially during COVID, and this is another kind of risk management thing that I'm grateful for in our small scale, is that we were able to pivot and all of our events got pushed to 2021 and just sell via delivery and via farmers market, and still very, very, very occasionally won't have flowers left. Really not much at all. There's Mark looking pretty cool at farmers market. This is back when we were Prickly Pear Produce, but we still do a lot of tomatoes. Well, this year we did. 2019 not as much, but just some of our vegetable options. So we probably could fulfill a CSA with what but we instead offer it as an a la carte menu ordering list for people. And this is something we did for COVID, but I like it so much that I think we'll probably keep it. Oof, I'm so sorry, everybody. I don't know if you heard that baby crash into the door behind me. All right. So we do chickens. We get new layers every 1.5 years. Up right next to the picture here, or next to the words, these are our first meat birds that we've ever done here. We've both done them before in different capacities, but they're just our first endeavor with that. Another benefit of staying small is just, you know, kind of adding things to the mix. This is a crimson clover crop with our layer birds in there. And so we love that. We run the chickens through cover crop before we mow and silage tarp our cover crop. Here's some of our, so we do the Easter eggers, and then we always do, our technique is that every 1.5 years we get more Easter eggers and we get a new crop of heritage breed that looks different than the last crop of heritage breeds. So another fun pro tip so that we can always tell how old everybody is. And we give away our chickens. We don't eat them. So this meat bird thing will be a whole new world. Oops. All right, so getting into some of our equipment, not really equipment, it's going to be in the infrastructure section, but here's a good picture of our deer fence as well. This is the Gorilla 110 that we use. We use predominantly the rotary plow, and as much as we'd like to get into kind of some no-till, at the moment we're low-till. We use the tiller to, you know, get in cover crop seeds. We don't have a seed drill or anything like that. We use it to fluff up beds before we put compost on them, stuff like that. A rotary plow and a flail mower. We use the flail mower for mostly putting down cover crops. Silage tarps is we used to make stale seed beds as much as possible. I don't have any great pictures of our weed mats, but our weed mat collection is very extensive. And basically we use 4-foot weed mats, 3-foot raised beds. And what happens is we burn holes in them and kind of different spacing depending on the crop, and we'll reuse them. We haven't thrown really anything away yet until they disintegrate as our alternative to plastic. Black plastic, even the biodegradable stuff. I have an up close picture, but we use chicken tractors that you move by hand. Drip irrigation. One of the benefits of having a background with other larger farmers is that even on our scale, we use extensive drip irrigation, pretty much all at 9-inch spacing between emitters, because we prefer just to go ahead and give our soil the moisture. And then we use a lot of hand tools. So those are some of the ones that we basically do all of our push seeding or transplanting, and those hoes. Here's a picture of our chicken tractors. So we use lawnmower wheels, old tarps. These work extremely well, surprisingly. Just old recycling containers. And then there's roosting bars that go across the top of this area for the chickens. And then we pull them, and with the wheels, they're pretty easy. Here's one of our silage tarps in action. Here's another deer fence picture. This picture is nice because you can see our chicken tractors. I think this is our sweet potatoes. Mark took this morning, so yeah. So here's a cool little collage that we made. Makes me a little sad because it's way pre-COVID. This is like 3 years ago, but we used to just have friends come and build greenhouses with us. Our farm came with chicken coop, tractor barn, big and small tool sheds, as you saw on that first map. And then we used the Johnny's pipe bender system, and we built 3 12-by-80 greenhouses and a makeshift packing shed, which was the white structure that I told you about. And we also have in our big tool shed, we framed out an 8-by-8-by-10 cooler, which stays at like 40 degrees, 42 degrees, and has been incredibly useful for us. But that being said, we have very little space. I end up arranging in our cooler, which is tight. We don't really have a lot of capacity to expand at this point, and things are really tight. So our goal is to build a packing shed with 2 coolers at different temperatures, and some water, maybe just a little insulation so we can heat or cool it and kind of extend our season. Oops. All right, so this is our sales outlets as they are now, like in 2020 post-COVID. Oops, sorry. Our first one is that we deliver. So we started doing this, I kind of freaked out in March, like, oh, we were growing so well, everything was looking so good, and how are we going to get this to people? Not only, all of the unfortunate stress of a global pandemic and the worry for everybody. But we kind of worked out a system using a combination of Cognito forms, which you could find online if you needed to, and MailChimp, and then some other social media marketing through Instagram and Facebook, to get to our customers and offer delivery. And this has been pretty successful. We go locally, which is in our county, which is Charles County, and then Southern Prince George's County, which we're pretty close to. We had CSA drop-offs there in the past, so we actually were able to reconnect with a lot of people who were like, I haven't had a CSA delivery since you stopped doing your CSA, and it's a really awesome thing. We also once a month go to either Annapolis area, which is where my parents live, and we also used to do the Anne Arundel County Farmers Market, and we've been going to Silver Spring, which is we used to do the Silver Spring Farmers Market. Occasionally we do go to Calvert County. We've tried some other options. So we'll probably continue. In September, we're going to 3 different places. So that's what we do on the weekends for fun, is we just drive around and deliver stuff to people. And what we do on our form is we offer everything kind of a la carte. So with some sales here and there. And then I also offer this thing, I just do like a garden box, which is $20, and it's 5 to 6 items that I need to get rid of, basically, that we have too much of. And so people, you know, they're gonna get maybe $22 worth of stuff in that box. So it allows us to manage our inventory. But the great thing about using Cognito Forms is that I know other people do this with Square and other Wix and stuff, but this was revelatory for me. I was like, whoa, we can like make a form and then I walk away and then it doesn't, I don't know. I was just like, had been using Google Forms or something and just didn't realize it could be this easy. So anyway, so that's the great thing is I put the form out last night and then the orders just roll in and nobody over orders. And the only way I run into trouble is if I overestimated what we had available. But we deliver flowers, eggs, and veggies to people this way. Yeah, and it's pretty good. It's about what a farmer's market would be for us a week. And it takes about the same time, but it's less arduous because it's driving, and we can also just go ahead and, especially when COVID was, you know, really, before things started opening back up, we were able to run errands that day, or, you know, once a month if we could get away with it. But, you know, we'd be out safely doing things that we needed to do. So, and I put, here's a copy, screenshot from our website. And you can see that we put it out every Sunday evening and it's due by Wednesday for delivery on Friday. And then you can also prepay, you can pre-order for market pickup, which we'll get into here. This is a picture from a customer. Not everything here is ours, but it was a lovely shot. We used to do 3 DC area markets a week and sometimes make half as much as we do here in Southern Maryland, driving 25 minutes away instead of an hour and a half. I kind of kicked myself that we didn't try this sooner. But actually, just no but. It's great. I mean, we really love being a part of our local community. Yeah. The market has been, you know, really adapting well, but it wasn't open till July, so that posed a few challenges, but deliveries held us until then. And we sell our vegetables, since they're kind of, there's a lot of vegetable vendors at the market, we sell our veggies for pre-order only, so people can come and get their bag of veggies. And occasionally some overflow veggies. But yeah, it's been a great market for our for our flowers. All right. And then here's a screenshot from the website. I have a color problem. I just like use colors everywhere. As you can see from my purple office. So here's from our website. Events are part of our long-term plan to kind of grow our business, but it's kind of a hard thing to put on the front burner right now. We do have 3 weddings coming up, or sorry, 2 weddings and a bridal shower coming up in September and October. But I'm not sure what's going to happen. Again, a really positive thing about being a small farm is that we can do this, is that we can shift as we need to. So I started doing friends' weddings more than 10 years ago, and typically do 5 to 7 weddings a year. Yeah, I mean, as anybody who has done wedding flowers will tell you, they're a lot of work, and so the prices are high, and kind of deservedly so. Like, they're really a lot of work. You get the most beautiful flowers that you grow. It always takes a ton more flowers than you realize it's going to do wedding arrangements. But, you know, part of our mission is to be an accessible operation. Flowers do make people really happy, and I would really hate to exclude people, but to grow. So yeah, we're just trying to balance the accessibility and the charging appropriately for weddings. So that's kind of my farm tour. Here's some just insights off the bat that I had while I was thinking about this presentation. You know, I guess a lot of this has been about spreading risk more thinly, and obviously bringing the joy and appreciation for our work into this picture, preventing burnout, enjoying what we're growing. But it also has let us pivot, especially during COVID. That's more present than ever. And for family, I mean, as a female who also really wanted to be a parent and a mother, a female farmer who really wanted to be a mother, it's very difficult to consider how I was going to do what I was doing. You know, before I met Mark, I was doing this 100% alone. And so, yeah. So being small helps us pivot, and having a part-time job helps me pivot. But also this pandemic has showed us how, you know, much better off we are than even multinational corporations who can't, who have to get bailed out. I mean, granted, we're an essential industry and all of these things, but just in terms of the pivot, I will say that being small just feels like a really great way to be. And it helps us explore all our different interests, as I, you know, consider doing more with the body care products, or, you know, the medicinal herbs. I'm able to, you know, make those changes as we desire. But that comes from having a lot of experience and knowledge and seeing a lot of different operations. And so my advice to beginners would be, just to learn as much as possible, to continue learning even after you've started your operation. You know, I worked for other farmers and in other, you know, operations and non-farm endeavors for 12 years before I started my farm. And maybe not everybody needs to do that, but yeah. So I've always told, you know, when people ask me how to get into farming, I just say, go get a job. Like, just go get somebody to pay you, or, you know, or do the beginning farmer training program, but do it with as many different people as you can, just to see all of the ways, because then you'll probably, you know, still have a whole lot of, you know, knowledge from these other farmers, but perhaps, you know, you can distill some of that and decide what kind of farm you want to be. So, lamb. Oops.
Great, thank you so much.
And here's just some resources that I found really useful. The first one was the book that we've used. Like, used to do it every December. We would read her one section about farm decision making. And then obviously holistic management from the Savory Institute, and then just some other, even though we don't do CSA anymore, I really love Sharing the Harvest. And please feel free to reach out. If a question comes to you in a week, feel free to email me.
Thank you so much. This has been amazing.
Oh, thanks, Caroline.
All right, so I've got a whole nice long list of questions for you. So we're going to go ahead and do that. I am going to, let's see, can you switch off of screen share, and that way we'll be able to see everybody's faces again if folks want while we chat here. Hey, everybody. All right, before we get into the questions, just in case anybody has to drop off early, I am sticking a link to our post-event survey in the chat box here. I'll also be emailing it out after for anyone who is on the phone. But if you can take a few minutes, it shouldn't take any more than 5 to 10 minutes to fill it out. The information is incredibly helpful to us as we do our planning for 2021 and events further on in the year. We really weigh the information that we get in these surveys very heavily when we're thinking about what we want to incorporate into programming in the future. So Really appreciate that. Oh, yep, sorry. Yeah, actually, Becky, if you want to share your screen again, we had a request to go back to the resources. I think I did have a step that a little fast. Sorry about that.
If I can do it. Oof.
Um, no worries. I can also,
I did it.
yes, yay, sweet. All right. Also, we'll be uploading the presentation. And so if there was anything that you wanted to take notes on, we are currently recording this to the cloud, and it'll take a couple days, but it'll be up on the resources tab on the Future Harvest website if anyone has any questions. And if you have any trouble accessing anything, you can always email me too. And my email is Caroline@futureharvestcasa.org. All right, question time. So I'm not going to do these in order because I'm going to kind of clump them together, but folks, do feel free to chime in with additional questions as well. Okay, so I had a couple quick technical ones to start. There was a question about what you use to burn holes in your landscape fabric. This person was having trouble with the blowtorch that I think that they had chosen. And if
It's the
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go for it.
It's the small blowtorch, the propane blowtorch. It's the propane one. It's a small canister. It's like this tall. Can you guys see? I'm not sure how the screen sharing works.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's like 8 or 10 inches tall, like a little camping propane. And I think we got ours at Ace Hardware. I'm sure you could, yeah.
Yeah, I think I've got, is it the, yep, here we go. I think I've got one that I've seen before. It's called like a Brenzomatic or something.
Yeah, Brun-O-Matic or something like that.
I don't know why that link came up so weird, but
it heard you.
Well, I did copy paste, but it also copy pasted like 14 lines of code in the chat box. So, all right, anybody who understands computer programming, decode that one. But I also put the actual name of the tool right below. All right, next one is the weight of the weed mat that you use. Do you know if it's like 5 mil or 10 or the brand name of it?
No, I buy it from what would be Knowles.
Okay.
So whatever Knowles sells, we have a Knowles distributor down here in Mechanicsville. So whatever Knowles sells.
Yeah, so it's the equivalent of like Knowles or Martin's. And if you go to like Knowles Greenhouse Supply, you'll find their catalog online. It's a PDF version, and they've got like, yeah,
I didn't know they PDF.
Yeah, they've updated the tech game. All right, and height of your deer fence?
8 feet. So we did 10 feet, 10 foot. Oh my gosh. 10-foot T-posts, and then we did them 20 feet apart, except for corners, and then we did 3 feet. Okay, so sorry. Anywhere there was a gate or a corner, we did 3 foot deep concrete poured 4-inch by 4-inch posts, wooden posts.
That makes sense. I know you get trouble with the tension and leaning otherwise.
It's still not perfect. That's not really our strength.
Well, you should see my deer fence. My deer fence looks like I built it. Okay, reason for the Grillo walk behind as opposed to a BCS?
Nazirak at Purple Mountain Organics recommended it for what we wanted to do. So it's the second highest horsepower Grillo that they have, and so we knew we wanted a flail mower, and we knew we wanted. Basically, we went to Nazirak, and I would recommend to do this as well. He goes through Earth Tools and ask. Although, be prepared because he's a busy farmer and physician. But anyway. Told him what we needed to do, what we were interested in, and he helped us determine what machine we wanted.
Great, and we have a clarifying question, which is, do you, with the picture showed Mark running the Grillo, but do you run it as well?
Absolutely, although these days it just happens that our kiddo likes her mom a lot more than her dad, so Mark is the guy that does a lot of the tractor work. But yes, absolutely, I used to be the only person who did the machine work for a long time.
let's see. All right, couple more questions, a little bit less technical now, but one quick question about the finances. Was it 25 to 35K overall or per person, if you're comfortable answering that?
Oh, totally overall.
Okay.
Yep.
And the size of your vegetable CSA when you were running one?
The largest was 50.
Okay.
First year I did no markets, and I did a 50-person CSA, and it was 2 different sizes. So it was, I don't even remember if it was like a third large and 2/3 regular, and I don't even remember the prices. That was a while ago. And then when we started doing markets, we went down to 30 or 40.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, members.
Makes sense.
And it was that for a while. It was that into 2000 through 2018.
Cool. And do you have an order minimum for delivery?
Yes, we have a $30 order minimum, and if you don't meet the order minimum, you just pay a $5 delivery fee, but most people do.
Okay, cool. And one more technical question. How do you make a bed without a silage tarp or a tiller? I don't know if that's a technique that you use, if you do anything other than that, but I would also recommend for the person who did ask this question, we had a whole presentation on bed preparation as well. It's on the resources page.
So we do use silage tarps and tillers, but usually what we do as much as possible is we just use the silage tarp for about 4 weeks, depending on the time of year. Mm-hmm. And then we'll just use the rotary plow, which I know no-till folks are like, you just put all the weed seeds in the bed. But I hear you. But for us, it's all about the raised beds, because the raised beds are incredibly important for our I hate to use risk management constantly, but yeah, for if we get too wet, raised beds are the things. And raised beds grow better crops in all sorts of different systems. But yeah, so it's making the raised beds, maintaining the raised beds. So
sure,
silage tarp and rotary plow as much as possible.
That makes sense. And I think I missed the clarifying part of that question, but I'm having trouble going back and finding it in the chat box. Let's see. Okay, couple of cut flower related questions. How did you learn how to do wedding work?
Yeah. Oof. I guess I started with, I did a couple events like really sporadically throughout the years, and maybe had a couple people teach me a couple things. And then when my friends started asking me to do their flowers for their weddings, I would, if I needed to, go ahead and look at good old, YouTube or Pinterest or any way I could. And I think, there's like a million things I can improve on in my life, but I think I do have a pretty good eye. So that kind of helped with just like design work in general. Mm-hmm. And then, so when I was like, okay, I need to learn how to do a boutonniere, I had to probably look that one up. But I will say that knowing a lot about plants really helped enough about plants, because I could say, this is going to keep, like, this I can keep for a boutonniere, say, I can keep this out of water for however long, so just having some knowledge of plants was really useful in terms of the ins and outs of botanical stuff. But there's still things I don't know about, and that's part of like my goals as a professional development. And I'm upfront with brides about what I can and can't do. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah, making sure that you manage expectations. And then we had a couple of questions about why November is so big for cut flowers for you, and then which flowers you choose that bloom in October and November.
Oh no, they don't bloom. we're planting. That's what you're doing in October, November. So October, November, so some flowers do. So we'll start with the second one. So the first thing is that your heirloom mums are really, and anything you can get in greenhouse. This year we're trying zinnias for like October, zinnias, some amaranth, and some celosia, as well as a whole lot of heirloom mums. And the thing about the heirloom mums are that they can come in just a huge variety. You could probably make a bouquet of just heirloom mums and you would have a ton of different textures and colors and shapes and everything. You can also use dried flowers, so that's another great thing you can use if you need to. In that time of year. But so that being said, but those you plant in May or June at the latest. So in October and November, what we do is we prep a bunch of beds. This year we did 300-foot by 3-foot beds, 300 square foot beds. And we burned holes, or they already had holes, I don't remember. And we do them fairly close together. And you seed the following things: bupleurum, larkspur, nigella. You can do damascens or papilosa. Those are types of nigella. You can do Ami or the Daucus dara, or Daucus, any Daucus that you like, which is Queen Anne's lace, and bachelor's buttons. That's typically what we do, although there's a few additional crops that we'll probably add that we didn't do this year. And then they bloom for you in April, usually April to May, and April to June. Some of them are as late as June.
What are your first and last frost dates? Because I think we've got a pretty wide geographic range of folks on the call, and
Sure.
I'm thinking that it's the time of year might be a little different for some.
We're 70, so yeah. So we're usually, I say April 17th, October 17th.
Okay.
So about a 6-month frost-free time.
Yep.
But honestly, I think if you did any of that and covered it, you'd still be fine.
Sure.
Scabiosa, although scabiosa is very, very hardy, and this year we seeded it in the greenhouse and planted it out in January. So I don't recommend that either.
Nice.
Typically that time of year, November, we also plant our anemone and ranunculus, although we've done them in the greenhouse for a lot of years. Now we're going to be doing them in the fields. And I'm trying to get a Johnny's pipe bender system for the 4-foot tall, 4-foot tall little low tunnels. But they're sold out right now. But anyway, and so then you just need to either keep it vented constantly and just close it when it's getting really cold. But they can't just live in that all the time. But anyway, if you covered them with either row cover or some sort of plastics, you could probably still do them in most zones, I would say, that are listening.
Yeah, it makes sense. They don't like the heat, but they don't mind a decent amount of cold. All right, let's see. I think I have like 1 or 2 more questions, and then I know a bunch more just appeared in the chat box I haven't had time to write down yet.
Sure.
So actually, since the chat box is filling up, hang on folks 1 second. I'm gonna copy the survey link again, and pressure you to keep filling that out, please. Someone else was curious to know if you have resources for finding work from home opportunities or opportunities that help balance with homesteading work. And someone wanted to check and see if it was true that Mark worked off the farm as well.
Yeah, Mark, well, we've been pretty blessed because Mark was unemployed because of COVID, because he worked in retail. He didn't make a lot of money though. I mean, it wasn't a huge, it was a great contribution to our house, but it wasn't like a make or break contribution to our household. And so, but he's been here a lot more, which has been amazing. He is killing it this year. But yeah, so he's been home. So that's like this extra factor that we have to consider next year. And
Sure.
also he got the extra stimulus money from being unemployed.
Hmm.
So these are all really great things for our family, but they definitely make us have to reevaluate our long-term sustainability.
That makes sense.
But I still think we're on the right track.
Um,
And I don't have any resources. I'm sorry. My job was really like a fluke. I got it through a friend. And actually they had a hiring freeze because of COVID. So like it's hard. I don't really know. I wish I did. Future Harvest, check with Future Harvest if they have job openings.
there are things that keep popping up on the bulletin board on Future Harvest. That's definitely a resource. And I saw in the chat box that someone posted a link to Indeed.com and mentioned that there are other like online job boards where you can filter by full-time or part-time and work from home and other options as well. So there are some things out there. But Becky, I think the point you're making is that a lot of it is building relationships in the community as well, right? And that's a piece of how a lot of folks figure out ways to make part-time stuff work. We had another question about if anyone had done a feasibility study on forming a cut flower co-op. And so I'll answer that first as a Future Harvest person, if that's okay. And that's that I don't personally know of any, but it has been something that we've been hearing more and more about, and we're definitely looking into maybe running some programming around cooperatives, not cut flower specific, but just, things that folks have done. So stay tuned. Within the next year, you'll likely see something because we're seeing that more and more as a question. But nope, don't take that as a promise. And I will look up and see. There are a couple cut flower co-ops in the region. I saw that some folks put in a couple of names in the chat box as well. But yeah, Becky, I was wondering as a cut flower grower if that's something you've any experience with.
I think Priscilla's on the call today. So Priscilla Wentworth and I have been talking about it. Sorry, Priscilla Leitch, I'm sorry. Leitch, have been talking about starting a Southern Maryland co-op, but we have not come to anything because we both are newer parents. So if anybody's interested in that, please email me. We were kind of keep it to the 3 Southern Maryland counties, Calvert, St. Mary's, or Charles. But the goal would be to kind of help brand flowers for designers or florists, which is all kind of just up in the air right now, and maybe for retail through Southern Maryland growers. So if you're a small Southern Maryland flower grower, feel free to email me. We're just really in the beginning phases of starting Southern Maryland Blooms Flower Co-op. So
cool. That would be really exciting. And
I also love resources, so let me know if you start anything with Future Harvest.
Well, we're certainly not going to be starting a co-op, but in terms of maybe pulling together resources or experiences, folks who have done that, or a field day or a webinar or something like this, we'll see. Stay tuned. We'll share information if we have it. I'm going to ask one more question here from the original list, and then since we have been on the call for about an hour and a half, I want to respect folks' time. And we'll wrap up me asking the questions, but I'll have folks go ahead and unmute themselves so we can, keep chatting and keep engaging. But let's see, the last question was about pricing. And I've seen a couple different pricing questions pop up about how you decide how to price your bouquets, how big to build the bouquets, how much you charge per stem for some of the specialty cut flowers. And don't want to put you on the spot to break down all of your pricing information, but maybe if you could speak briefly to how you make some of those decisions based on how much work you put in and how much the tubers or seeds cost and that sort of thing.
Yeah, we definitely take pricing very seriously, although I don't go so far as to think about how much things cost in terms of corms or tubers or anything like that. I do look at Potomac wholesale growers. I look at just a few other lists that I use to help with pricing. I don't have them off the top of my head. They're bookmarked on my computer, but I'm sorry. I use
Flower Terminal, I think, is one that I've heard that folks use.
and I'll just ask other growers too, or when I used to moonlight sometimes for a grower at the DuPont Farmers Market, and I would go look at other flower growers' prices, just to kind of make sure. I think our prices are a little on the lower end of things, although I'm not sure that our customer base would give us much more. That being said, what I try to do is make sure that like the flowers that we sell at market are balanced between higher value and, it's not lower value, but just the more inexpensive flowers. Like I use a lot of Thai basil, cardinal basil in our market bouquets because they're huge and they make them look lovely and big, and they smell good, you know, and so they have they bring value, but they're not hard to grow. So like I try to make sure that I bring that kind of thing into what I sell. And I sell our market bouquets for $12 each. I used to be 10, and I realized I was underselling us. But on our list, we sell a $10 and $20 small or large summer bouquets. I'm just not sure that our customers would really go for much more than that. Yeah, so it's tricky. For weddings though, you know, I really do try to be reasonable, but they are more expensive. So sometimes the same amount of blooms or the same size of a bouquet would be $30 instead of $20 but it's because I'm using the best flowers for a wedding. Say it's for a wedding centerpiece. I'm using the best flowers. I'm taking my time to arrange it. And to be honest, more flowers go into weddings than I ever realized. You know, I always bring a ton and I use them all, and I'm like, whoa. So it always takes more. So it's a little bit of a wishy-washy answer, but periodically I'll kind of look and be like, okay, if this was 50 cents, if this was 75 cents, if this was $1.25, if this was $2, but I don't spend, I would lose money constantly if I was doing that with every bouquet. So it becomes, because it's like a market bouquet thing and I'm like trained as a market grower, I'm just like, done, you know what I mean? And that's it. So I don't sit around and like price them, but I do try to make them all, you know, maybe this is the benefit and the pitfall of being an experienced grower or having experience, is that I don't know how to price that out for you. I just kind of like do it. But, and I guess the most useful part of that answer would be that there's always something inexpensive in a market bouquet.
Makes sense.
Is that a good response?
Yeah, that's super helpful.
Okay.
All right, so we've been going for an hour and a half, so I'm gonna go ahead and call this our semi-official end. But for anyone who wants to stay on the line, and Becky, if you're able to stay on and ask more questions, feel free to unmute yourself. I'll stay on for a bit too. We've got about 20 more minutes before I have to put a hard stop, and we need to switch the Zoom line for something else. So thank you everybody so much. I really appreciate it. I put the SurveyMonkey link again. Thank you so much to those folks who've already filled it out. Again, super helpful to get those responses. We will be putting the recording up, so if you have questions about things that were on slides earlier, or you want to go back and, you know, listen to something you missed again, stay tuned. When that link is ready, it'll be emailed to you with the email address that you registered through on Eventbrite. Yeah, cool. Thank you so much, Becky.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, this is Stephanie. I have a question, if I may.
Hey, Steph.
Hey, so I was the one that wrote the bed prep question, and what I actually was getting at was I've taken a few bed prep classes and studied about it, and you know, there's the silage tarp, broad fork, you know, silage tarp, rake the dead ones off, broad fork methodology, and like everybody I know still uses like a tiller to do the last bit of bed prep, and that sounds like what you do. And so my question is, like, is there an alternative? Because that's what I would do. Like once I've done solarizing this and broad forking, I'm gonna I guess I could dig, but I was just curious if you knew of any other option that wasn't tilling. Because
I mean, some people just put compost on top, you know, and just plant right into that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
They just don't even,
So they don't
yeah.
do raised beds.
Or they do raised beds and then they silage tarp.
yeah. Yeah,
So
I've
they have
seen
like,
someone just put the
But
tilt
they still,
top box as well. And that's like a little, it just like messes with the top inch.
yeah, there you go.
how do
Yeah.
you, have you experienced using a tilther? My only experience was it was my boss saying she didn't like it.
I mean, we're okay right now with our limited tillage. Yeah, I use a rake too. I mean, I haven't used a tilther. I know I have a friend at Foxbriar Farm, Kathleen. She's in on the shore. She's like doing no till to the max and killing it. Yeah, I'm not sure what I haven't perfected the no till yet.
The question I have is what is best for the environment between tilling and allowing, causing some erosion versus spraying and putting chemicals in the groundwater?
Right.
The perennial question, isn't it?
Yeah, we definitely don't do the chemical route. For us, the weed mats just was the thing that always made sense. I mean, we started here on thatchy land that had sweet gums growing in the middle of it. So for us, it was like no till wasn't a thing. Like it was, it was like, how do we kill these trees that are, living in the middle of our fields? So I'm sure we'll get there someday. But yeah, I mean, I just think, like Frank said, like it's also just a matter of, are you reading your land and what does it need at the time that you're needing to work on it?
I think one of the things that often also gets lost in the no-till discussion too is that there is a spectrum, right? Like between tilling every time you're going to touch the soil, there's some amount of tillage or disturbance where you're flipping the soil over, versus using a mix of tillage and silage tarps, and maybe you only till to incorporate cover crop. And is, what kind of balance are you striking there? But I have there's so many different opinions on the should you use glyphosate to knock down weeds and incorporate that in a no-till system, and what is the right choice there, and there's so many different opinions out there. It's hard to really assign value to what is best and what's not, because every farm can be so different, right? It's a good question.
And if you're trying to claim land that is overgrown, it's reclaim land that's overgrown, that's really hard too without something drastic. That's part of what I'm facing. We bought a 7-acre farm that was the whole meadow is just wild now. So I'm going to have to bush hog it just to even walk through it. And then I have to decide what to do next. So
Just keep bush hogging.
yeah.
just keep seriously, because some of those noxious things can't grow. They need the height, you know what I mean? So like if you keep it low for a year, you'd be surprised probably what dies back. That's just a thought.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I've heard a lot of folks do is the first time they get on a piece of land that hasn't been used for years is they do till it, run a chisel plow and a disc and such through it, and then silage tarp it to kill down those annual weeds, and then that's it. Then it's no till. It's really difficult to break new ground that hasn't been used for agriculture in however many years. Sorry, what were you going to say?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Yeah, I would definitely chisel plow.
I mean, just
totally.
You're facing something really tough.
Yeah.
If you had time though, just mow it and mow it and mow it. You know what I mean? And then it'll get to a place where you can plow it.
Right.
Let me see if there's any questions that
I had to laugh when you described how the water runs across your land and doesn't perk. That's exactly what I have too. Same thing. I have an ephemeral stream that is not there when it's not raining hard, and when we get a good downpour like yesterday, it's amazing. You can float a boat down through my pasture land.
Where are you, Frank?
In Central Maryland, Clarksville, Howard County.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I feel like just Maryland in general has these just, I mean, it's a wetlands based state, we have just.
And I was just sitting here thinking, I don't know how else I'll get seeds in the ground if I don't chisel plow it. I mean, it's just, the ground here is, I mean, it's fertile, but it's really packed hard. So.
Also subsoil, be another thing to do with the subsoiler.
I've heard of folks too doing like depending on how much time you have, because right time is a luxury as well. I've heard of folks using a no-till drill and really cover cropping very heavily so that when they do till, they're incorporating a lot of organic matter back into the soil. So it's not, but I mean, if it's already in sod, you might already have a lot of organic matter that's going to get incorporated right in.
Doesn't seem to be a shortage of organic matter. It's almost like you have too much of it.
And you'll probably see that too. It'll be a really great growing medium for, a couple years. If,
right.
If you didn't replenish the soil, it would just because it had all that organic matter.
So there's been a couple questions, and I think some of them have gone to just me privately about dahlia growing. And one of them is just, do you grow dahlias?
Yeah, I'm terrible at growing dahlias. No, I'm not terrible. I'm just spotty. I would go see a Dave Dowling workshop if you want to learn about growing dahlias in the Mid-Atlantic. I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert. I've grown really beautiful dahlias. We use, I'll just say what we do. We don't stake. We do the Hortonova, and this year we did 6-foot weed mat, strangely enough, on 2 raised beds, and then we did a 6-foot wide bed so that you can get to it from either side. And then I did rather large, holes every 2 feet, but it was in a weedy field, and it's super weedy, and I have to weed it all the time. And it's also one of our wetter fields, so some of it rotted out. It's one of the crops that didn't do well this year. Anyway, so like not my year for dahlias, but
they're a tricky crop. I think that there's a decent number of folks who specialize in them. There's a lot of resources out there.
Dave Dowling, who works with Glockner and Edney's Bulbs, does some workshops through Gardner's Workshop, and he's really the guy for the Mid-Atlantic.
Cool. I think we just had a no-till cut flower program that also had a lot of focus on dahlias as well too. Folks are interested in hearing from a farmer, but Dave was formerly a farmer in this region, right?
Yeah, he's New Jersey now, but he used to be Maryland. Yeah. I think.
Cool. All right. Any more questions, folks? Apologize if I've missed anything. I love it when that's the challenge, when there's such a robust discussion that I'm like, oh no, did I catch all of them? Definitely don't hesitate to send in some more.
There's one about greenhouses heated. Greenhouses are not heated.
Small farmers grant. Bonnie, I'm not entirely sure what your question is. If you want to unmute yourself and ask it, go for it. Can't hear you. Are you asking if there are grants for small farmers for tillers? All right. I'm gonna guess that is
okay.
Go
Here I am.
Now we can hear.
Yeah.
So
I received my grant and bought the box tiller. After all these years, I've been sheet composting with manure and just working it by hand. And I produce a lot of debris, so it's on-site composting. People are asking about no-till.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
That's my method. For 30 years, we've been developing our beds here.
Thank you. That's really helpful to know.
Just commenting.
That's great.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. Sorry, sometimes I can't always.
good network here. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, can I ask another question about sourcing materials?
Yeah, go for it. Let's make this the last question because I do have to cut us off, but go for it.
Oh, okay.
No,
I
go
may
ahead.
have missed it. I'll be fast. I just was curious, like, are there any, do you always recommend starting your own flowers from seed, or are there any resources on starts for flowers?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I've used, I do most of ours ourselves, except for things that take a really long time. Like I have grown Lizzie's from seed, but I typically, Lysianthus I will purchase. I did them recently through Germania Seed Company, but I think they bought them from like Grow and Sell or something. It's hard. So again, I'm still a beginner at some of the nursery buying stuff, but it gets into this tricky world of you get suppliers who are in league with the growers, and so it kind of doesn't matter who you go through. Yeah, so you can try different people, but so I used Germania, and the cool thing about them with Lizzie's was what I was able to do at the end of the year was get at the end of the growing season was get their like incomplete flats, but they'd be like incomplete 288 flats, so they would have like 250 in them, but they'd use 38 to pot up or whatever. Anyway, so that's one way to go if you're not picky about the varieties that you get. And typically, as long as I'm getting a wide variety, I'm not. And then I've had that round of Lizzie's in the greenhouse for 2 years now, and they're doing great. But so Germania Seed Company, I do buy from Glockner, and Edney Bulbs is kind of together, just corms and tubers and the things that I'd need. You can't really start from seed. So anyway, typically, yeah, I do start most things from seed, which we've always just used a weird conglomeration of heat mats in the house and racks, and then keeping things warm out in the greenhouse. So it's been always a little bit of a balancing act, but we do end up growing Plant Masters. Yeah, Plant Masters in Montgomery County. I've bought stuff from him as well before too. He does great stuff. Lizzie's as well. So that's another place to go. I've never bought from Sharp's Farm. But anyway, some things that take a really long time. Basically, like I have a date that I don't start things before. So like I have like a February 1st start date. And if something needs to have been started before then, I buy it. But that's not many things. So yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you everybody so much. Don't hesitate to send in more questions if you have them. I can definitely pass them along to Becky and pull things together and get you some responses or some more resources if things have come up. Just want to say again a huge thank you to everyone who filled out the survey. It's really appreciated. And I do need to end the presentation now because there's another call starting soon. So I have to kick us off Zoom, unfortunately. But yeah, thank you everybody so much. It was great to have you, and thank you, Becky, for a lovely presentation with a ton of information.
Oh my
Yes,
gosh.
thank you. Very helpful.
Oh gosh, thanks everybody. I really appreciate everybody coming, and thanks Caroline and Future Harvest.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
It was a
Stay well,
blast.
everybody.
Thanks all. Take care.